So far we can create new notes to any web page in our web extension, and we can show it to the user whether a page already has some notes or not. But to make the functionality complete, I want to have a new page which lists all the notes that the user has created. Luckily, it's super easy to add new pages to our extension, so head over to wxt.tab and see the documentation. You can see that there are a lot of entry points, so you can configure the bookmarks page, the dev tools, when there's a new tab, the pop-up which you already worked in, but I want to add an unlisted page, which is a custom page for our extension, and this will be the one where the user can manage their notes. So I click on unlisted pages and it gives me some explanation how to do it. Basically, naming convention is important. I can create a new folder and in that I add index.html. So let's follow that path. My route should be called notes. So I head over to our code base and create a new folder in the entry points called notes. And in that I will just add a new index.html. And I'm cheating a little bit because previously I already wrote the contents of this file. Now if I restart my development script and I look at the files, I can see that there is a new one called notes.html. So how to see the contents? Well, you can open the extensions page in Chrome, enable development mode, and you can find this ID here. I copy it. And in a new tab, I will write this Chrome extension : / then the ID, which is our extension, / notes.html. You can see that we could open the notes.html page. Just as a curiosity, if you remember when we were inspecting the pop-up, on the top of the page we had the similar URL, and yes, you guessed it right. You can also open pop-up here, which looks funny, so let's just go back to our notes file. Looking at the code, it's a plain HTML file which has a header section, a main area which has a notes grid once there are notes, and this section where there are no notes found. But it is not formatted in any way and there is no JavaScript functionality. So let's connect JavaScript first. In my notes folder I create a new JS file. You can call it however you want. This time I'm calling it main. And all I do is log something to see that it's working here. Okay, how do I connect it to the HTML? Well, in this case, we don't really need to use any defined entry point script because we already have the HTML file as an entry point. So instead I can just use the script tag with the main file and the type as module. And that is that. Now if I check the console for this page, I should see that it is working indeed. So we can see that the JavaScript is indeed working, but how do we add our CSS styles? Well, we could just import them similarly in the HTML file, but since we're using Vite, we can just depend on it and import it from the main.ts file, similarly as we did on top of the pop-up. So in the notes, I will create a new style.css. Now once again I'm cheating because I wrote the styles previously and I just copy it over, but basically I just set some fonts, colors, different sizes to make it look nice. And if I head over to our notes/main.ts, all I have to do is to import it. And now if I head over, I can see that we already got some basic formattings. So far so good, but we can't expect our end users to know the ID of the extension or this full path. So how can they get to this page? Well, I want to add a button in the bottom right corner of the pop-up, which will open this all notes page. So let's do it. I head over to the pop-ups main.ts and under the text area I create a button with ID open notes button. Then further down I add some reference to this button. Open notes document query selector. We know that this button exists, so I can easily add the exclamation point. And finally, at the end of the file, I will add an event listener. Open notes button dot add event listener. The event is click, and when this happens, I want to open the notes HTML. How to do that? Well, Chrome has an API that returns the full path, including the extension ID for a given file. So notes URL equals browser.runtime.getURL, and it needs a parameter which is the name of the file from the root directory, so I start with a slash, and it was called notes.html. And now we have this URL. I can just open it in a new tab. Window open, notes URL. Let's see how we're doing. I have the pop-up with the new button View Notes, and if I click on it, it opens our new page. The only things left to do is to add some styling to this button, so I head over to pop-ups style CSS, and again, instead of typing it out, I just copy it over. So if I open the pop-up, I should see a nicer button. Our notes page is ready, but it's still quite useless, so we should populate it with the existing nodes data. And to do that, let's head over to our nodes/main.ts and make some changes here. And once again, instead of typing it live, I will just paste some code that I wrote previously so that we can save that much time. But I will explain it step by step. We basically load the node storage data into this node storage object in the file, and we call render nodes within our init function, and we immediately call this init function when the page loads. Now the render nodes takes the node storage and converts it into an array of nodes which has the page key and the node. We have this type just under here, so like page key and node. And we are trying to populate the nodes grid, which I defined a bit further up here, which is the HTML div element with the ID nodes grid. So all we do is we populate its inner HTML with mapping this array of nodes and applying the create node card method. Now, the create node card method is a super simple one. It basically renders a node card. All it does is it takes the page key and the node from the node data, it formats the created at and the updated at dates to local date string, and finally it returns with an HTML for our node card, which has a data page key attribute on the outermost div, and besides that it has a link to the actual URL, it has a text area which contains the node, and it has some metadata. So let's see how it looks like. Let's add the note on Wikipedia. And we can see that it indeed got rendered. Now, once again, I need to style it, so I will do the same thing and I copy over some of my previously written CSS styles. Now if I head over here, I can see that our note does look much better than it did before. It follows the similar pattern than our pop-up has, and we have the clickable link that opens the actual page, and we have the contents of the note plus the metadata about its creation date. In this course, I don't want to spend much time on explaining every CSS type, but if you visit webextensiontutorial.com, you can download all the source files. They contain all CSS files, so if you want, you can dig deeper to understand what we're doing exactly. Now if we head back to our index.html in the notes, you might have noticed that I have this section to show something else when no notes are found. So let's add that functionality. First I define a new reference to our div. and I add two new methods, show no notes or hide no notes, which basically changes the display for the no notes element or the notes grid based on if we have notes or we don't. All I have to do is modify render notes to check if the length of the notes is empty. I can compare it with 0, or I can just do like this. If it doesn't have any length, then let's show the no notes and just return. And in any other case, we want to hide the no notes. Let me restart our development script just to make sure that we start with no notes. And if I click on view notes, I can see that no notes found. Let's add a new one. Test note. And if I come here and refresh, then the test note appears. As you can see, I had to refresh, so I think the last tiny bit missing is that it would be lovely if it would automatically update the notes and I don't need to refresh this page. So that's what we're going to do. The storage API has a way that we can listen to its changes, so let's do that. I create a new method, listen to storage changes. And in this method, I set up an event listener, browser.storage.onChanged.addListener, and it gets two parameters, the changes and the area name, and it's a function. Here we can check if the area name equals sync, because we were using the sync, and if our changes have a change on our notes storage. If that is the case, then changes.noteStorage will be an object that contains the new values, so we can use that. Const new value equals changes.noteStorage.newValue, and as you saw, it's an optional one, so we have to set some fallback value. Then we can populate our notes storage with this new value, basically overwriting it. And finally, we want to render the notes once again. And if there is any change, then we are updating the notes storage. So the render notes will already work with data with the updated notes storage. Sounds cool. Let's see if it does work. I will open YouTube and add a new note here, YouTube notes. And if I head over to Poll Notes, nothing happened. Bummer. And the reason is that I'm never calling the listen to storage changes method, so my bad. Let me just add it here. Okay, this was because of a page refresh. Let's find another page, the web store, and then note here, web store note. If I go back here, now you can see that the web store note showed up without me refreshing the page. This notes summary page looks almost perfect, but I want to be able to update notes if I make changes to them, and also want to be able to delete them. So let's wrap it up with that. To speed things up, I will just copy and paste some code again. I go to our note meta within the create note card, and next to the note dates, I just add the new part with two buttons, note actions. And I also update the style just so that we have it nicer. Basically, you can see that the delete button is showing up with no functionality yet. And although in our main.ts I also have a save button, it is hidden because the save button has opacity 0 and no pointer events. That is because I only want the save button to show up when the user makes changes. And let me paste some new JavaScript code at the end of our file. It might look a lot, but I will explain everything to you. First of all, we detect on the whole document element if a user has been typing something, and if they did so, we find the text area. If the text area has the page key data, which it does, and we know what the page key is, then we find the save button with the related page key data, and we add the class called with changes. Now if I come here back to my style and I look at the save button with changes, then we turn the opacity into 1 and the pointer events are enabled, so the user can click on the button. Let me just show you how it works and then we go through the rest of the code. So I saved everything, and as I said, if the user has a key up event, then this save button appears. Next, we are listening to the click event on the whole document once again, and that is because when the page is rendered, some of the save buttons and delete buttons might not be alive yet. They might not be rendered, or maybe a new node showed up later. This way we can make sure that all click events are detected, and we can check whether that click happened on a save button, because the class list of the button contains save button, or if the click happened on a delete button. In both cases, we can get the page key with finding the closest node card up in the hierarchy, and then we take their page key. And if you remember, every save and delete button is contained within a node card, and that has a page key. And in case this was a save button, we execute the save node, and if it was a delete button, we execute the delete node. And these are the two last functionalities that I need to explain. The save node method starts by finding the text for the given node based on the page key. We are basically finding the text area, and then we are updating the node storage page key node to the given node, and we are just updating the whole node storage object because we only replaced the node. Finally, we are deactivating the save button once again, since now we stored the changes, and that means that there are no changes again. We can deactivate that button, and that's also a nice user feedback to know that your changes have been saved. Finally, the delete button asks for a confirmation if you really want to delete the node, and if so, that in the node storage object we just delete the element that has the given page key, and once again we are updating it in the storage. The only thing left to do is to remove the node card, and in case that there are no nodes left, we are showing the show no nodes message. Let's see it in action. I head over, I wrote some text here, maybe something more meaningful, so cool, and let's save it. I can see that it is indeed updated, and if I head over to the Chrome Web Store and click here, I can see that the nodes are indeed updated in the storage. Let's delete the node from Wikipedia. I have the confirmation, and indeed the node disappeared, and it's showing up empty. Let's just delete all the nodes to see if the last part is also working. It does. No nodes found. Start adding nodes to pages to see them here is exactly what we wanted to see. I know it might have felt a little bit rushed, but there was nothing extension related in this block of code, nothing new that we haven't talked about in detail before. And once again, don't forget that if you want, you can download all source codes from webextensiontutorial.com.